Hi guys, it's Matt here with my co-host Michael on episode 47 of Oathwire. Good afternoon, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty fantastic, Matt. It's been an exciting week for me. I've been playing some Oathmark against my friend Jim. I've been getting the paints out, so really getting back in the spirit of things over the holidays. How are
Oh,
you, sir?
yeah. Apart from the old, the ever-present COVID, and people are going to think I've had it forever when they hear all these episodes. But yeah, no, I've unlike Chris, I try and plan a bit better, and so I get some more done in 1 week than I'm instead of once a week. So that's why I've still got the COVID. But trying to get painting done has been a bit of a nightmare. It's stunning headaches. Um, so hopefully tomorrow I can get back to it and get my my little project, 10 mil project, back on track, because I'm keen on getting that finished. And
Yeah, I've been following that on YouTube. That looks very impressive. And I know there is a 10 millimeter group out there, so hopefully you'll be able to find some games with those.
yeah, no, absolutely. I've got a friend who's bought Elf Army for my local club, so which is kind of where it sort of spawned from, really. So we'll get that out, and then we're looking to do some bigger games, like in my playing area, at my place, not the club, so we can put out 5,000, 10,000 points aside and try and do sort of a mass battle, which I'm not going to be able to get painted for Oathmark in 28mm, because 10,000 points it's at least another year's painting for me anyway. So unless I just have four dragons. I could have four dragons, so that would help me on my way. But
A few dragons, some
yeah,
elvish cavalry, and then bam,
yeah,
you're at
yeah,
10,000 points before you know it.
that's very true. So, but I don't fancy playing that game because it'll be quite boring.
Yes,
But
indeed.
so yeah, that's the plan. It's a bit Lord of the Ringsy, so I'm looking forward to it, and it's been a bit of a palate cleanser because you feel like you've completed stuff. You know, I turn around and look at stuff, and I'm like, in a day I've completed 4 units. It's like you don't do that in 28mm.
No, you sure don't.
So and I've got some bits and pieces, and we are going to be doing on the Oathmark Facebook page. Sorry, we're
I
going to
like
do
that face page. We should start
face
referring
page.
to as the Oathmark face page.
I like that. Yeah, we'll do that. So for that, we're going to do a monthly challenge that we sort of rested down for December. But in January, it's going to be finish up January. So we are going to suggest finishing up some projects because, you know, I believe some of the war gamers might have something sitting around that hasn't been painted. It's undercoated or half painted. I don't know. I don't know if people do that.
I strongly suspect you're right here, although I have no firm evidence.
No, I'm looking at my stuff. It's all definitely finished. So I will be cracking onto that. I've got some elf cavalry that needs finishing. Basically, it's all got various degrees of paint onto it, but it's not finished. So I'm going to finish them 10 guys off. So at least that'll be done. And then yeah, so that's what's news for me. It's by the time this comes out, hopefully we'll have the metal trolls out as well. So that's another thing that's going to be there for Oathmark. And then yeah, we were in the new year, and we've got 4,000 guys on the Facebook page as well.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Oathmark's really stepping into its own, I believe. Now, unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of content on YouTube of late.
No.
Hopefully, we're going to get back to that on the War Corgi channel. But that's like the next step. As long as we can get the game seen, it sells itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I sort of stepped back from doing that because we were having most of our games were having a lot of unpainted figures on it, which I didn't want to put up, which was a conscious thing on my friends, mostly, to be honest. You know who you are. But I can't force them to paint their figures. And I just thought there were some comments about, you know, they didn't like to see it, and I thought I'll take that into account. There's no point putting poor content out. I have got a edited picture one that I did with my friend Armand, who's a US Air Force enlisted guy. I've forgotten your rank. Sorry, Armand, but that I did the other week. So I'm going to be putting that up. But yeah, it's important. I'd like to be getting some more Oathmark content out there. I've been watching the one that you recommended the other day, the last interview that we did on episode. So I've watched some of his, but yeah, it'd be good to see some more battle reports out there to pull those people in. It's good to see the community is still building. People are being pulled into it. So we've got a year to get it all sorted, and my plan is to get that into action for myself.
Well, if it doesn't come together, it won't be from lack of effort from you, sir. So you're doing a great job.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are going to move on into our next segment. So we were talking about topics that we would like to cover.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
What's new with me?
Okay.
That's what you meant to say.
That's what I meant to say. Sorry, my friend. What is new with you?
Well,
I'm just jumping ahead. It's all about me, my friend.
The last time we talked, I was getting ready to play campaign game number 4 against my friend Jim with the Alliance of the Dawn is his elves and halflings versus my Night Falls, which is my undead, and Skaven, which are stand-in for goblins mostly, but then some orcs. And we played Wind and Rain. And this is the second time we played Wind and Rain, and now it's the second time I've lost Wind and Rain to those dirty elves. It seems like, early on in the game, elven shooting is not really too poorly affected by the Wind and Rain with that -1 modifier, as my guys are trudging up towards them. And right when I'm in a position to really start taking it to the elves is when the maneuver penalty hits and the whole board becomes difficult terrain. And it's like I'm getting ready to throw that punch and somebody grabs the back of my arm and I'm not able to throw it. So while I thought Wind and Rain was a pretty good scenario for me early on with the armies being what they are, I'm finding out it's not the case. So 4 games in a row I've lost to Jim to start this campaign.
Oh dear, yeah. No, it's not so clever. Well, I actually saying that we played the winter campaigns from the Bane of Kings scenario, and one that we did the one where you roll to see if something happens. So we started off with the ice elemental on table and ice on the floor, and it just got worse because we kept on rolling doubles, and we had ice on the floor, so you were only allowed to do 1 move, so that slowed everything down. Then we had the chilly wind, which started reducing down our morale, I think, or our shooting. And then we had the heavy snow, so we had a succession of that. It was such a good game, though. But oh my word, it just changed the dynamic of the game so much. So it's good fun when that sort of thing happens. But yeah, the ice ones are quite interesting. But the wind and rain is, if you're an elf, those first few turns can be, and you've got a Fletcher, and it can be quite decisive against your opponent as they're trying to get towards you.
And that's what I'm finding. So also played a 5th game since then for our campaign, and the Night Falls has finally won.
Yay!
This was Seize the Road, and I will say our victory was decisive.
Okay.
Not too much to say. It seems like my rolls finally came around, and I was rolling decently, and then just a series of good maneuvers and some Goblin Wolf Riders scouts well positioned behind a wall were able to blunt some chariots. They weren't able to do their usual work, and finally took one of Jim's territories. So despite being 1-4 against Jim, we're at the position where each of us own one of each other's territories or have it occupied.
Okay, cool.
So he is occupying the territory that my Barghast come from, but I have had enough of those chariots, so I occupied the Elven Wainwrights. So instead of, activating 96% of the time, he'll be activating 91% of the time. Hopefully that'll help me out. And then a really fun kingdom event, I was able to buy a new territory in the outer ring of my kingdom. So I definitely, took that. The cost is I got to play with 10% fewer forces points.
All
next time we play, but for an outer territory, I jumped on that deal. And so this is going to lead me into the next thing with what's new with me. So I got my paints out for first time in a couple months yesterday.
Cool.
And started painting some things. And I have this Skaven battle box, which I've been using for my goblins and my orcs. And so my orc line breakers are Skaven storm vermin, and then Skaven soldiers are goblin soldiers, and Skaven spearmen are goblin spearmen. And I know Joe has put out some rules for a couple of Skaven units, but I like to run them as goblins. It's not a complete rule set, so I'm not there yet. But I had these 20 plague bearers, and I just didn't know what to do with them. But with the addition of this new territory, I'm thinking about running them as ghouls from the undead. I think they're going to be like the cult of the necromancer queen. And, according to the fluff description, the ghouls are just regular people who eat the flesh of the dead and turn into these kind of monstrous zombies. Yep. And so I thought the plague bearers are a really good stand-in for that. So
I would say definitely.
I've had these things for probably 10 years, and I finally put them together, and I'm going to get them painted up and get them on the board, because those Elven Pathfinders, if you look at them on paper, people are like, those are really expensive and they don't really do much. But when you play against them on a board that has a lot of difficult terrain, they are really difficult to get out of their difficult terrain, and you just find yourself being flanked by them so often. So get some ghouls who are also nimble to rat them out, hopefully.
No, that sounds really good. So I was going to ask you how old the Skaven you were using, so that gives me an idea. So they've been sitting around for a while looking at you.
Yeah, it's actually my wife's army when she used to play with me. And so some of them are painted by her, some of them are painted by me, but probably a decade old. And got some rat ogres that I run as just regular ogres. It's a pretty good little play box to have. Because you can, with Oathmark rules being what they are, there's a number of counts as that you can do.
Oh, cool. Sounds awesome. So you've been a busy Christmas period for you then, so a holiday period. So that's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to more games here in the future too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had lots of games planned, but guess what?
Yeah, can't play with COVID.
Nope. But yeah, I had 3 games planned for this week. Just Oathwire, not including Oathmark, but Oathwire. See, it's in my mind. But not just. And then I had another game of Saga Magic scheduled to be played as well. So I was going to be busy, but there you go. These things are sent to try us.
Well, once again, Master Margarita is my favorite book of all time. First lesson is you can't plan for anything.
Well, that is very true. You definitely cannot. But yeah, so yeah. Thank you, mate. Go.
You were saying we have some subjects to discuss today.
Yes. So the first subject we're going to talk about is the undead, specifically a building an undead army and its benefits. It's that sort of thing. What's good, what's not good, what can you, not what you min-max out on, but what's good for taking, what's thematically going to be good for taking. It's that sort of stuff. You asked what subject, and I come from the point of view that I've got a project in the mind for my future, which is I'm going to do an undead army, but it's all based from I'm just going to try and source everything from 9-star. Why or why not? That's what I thought, because I just thought it'd be quite cool to see if I could do that. So, and I just thought I haven't really thought about an army list, and I'm sure people are out there, and there's a lot of mixing, but I want to do mine as a single race, if you were army. So
I think if you were going to play a faction as a single race faction, undead is probably the best. And this is a good follow-on conversation that you had with Ironhammer on episode 43, where you talked about, in general, building an army. So I've been looking forward to this since you broached this subject a few days ago. And just for reference, if you're looking for some general things about the undead, you got to go all the way back to Oathwire episode 3.
Wow.
In order for, just a general discussion, because there's some things that you're going to want to know, especially if you don't have Oathbreakers. Yeah. The supplement that came out. when it comes to rules that specifically impact the undead, such as spellcaster control, undead, uncaring, and unthinking. So we cover all those in episode 3. So if you're not familiar with the undead, go ahead and pause now and go way back in the archives. Check that one out, because Matt and I are just going to roll ahead like you already know what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and we're going to pretend we do, so that's great.
Fake it till you make it, brother.
Yeah, exactly. Indeed. Don't tell anybody. So yeah, no, yeah. At first, I was like, "Oh, I'm never gonna." Yeah, as you're doing all these sort of projects, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna do an elf army, with some humans in it. Once I got that, I'll get it done." And obviously now I've got a dwarf goblin army, so the next jump for me was the undead army. So, I suppose my thought process around that is what do I use as my capital? Because the first thing you have to do is decide whether you're going to get that necropolis or the cursed burial ground, isn't it?
That is the first big decision you got to make is an undead kingdom.
Yeah. So it is the only basically army list where you've got 2 different types of capital in there, basically.
Orcs and goblins are kind of in that mix too, if you consider them.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, but yeah, so I suppose, yeah, if you, depending on what you want to pick, it's going to be the way it leads you, I suppose. The necropolis is going to give you the Revenant King, whereas you go for the cursed burial ground, you're going to get your necromancer. So you're going to get your level 1 to 5 necromancer in there, but you do get some revenant bits and pieces in there as well, and you get the skeletons and various other bits and pieces from all of that as well. But yeah, the biggest change there is that prince or the king or the revenant general, whereas or 2 revenant captains, but it's the necromancer and the revenant prince and king that's the biggest change in there, isn't there?
Yeah, so interesting about the revenant king and revenant prince is they're both level 1 spellcasters. So you do get a little bit of magic in there. But the opportunity cost there, if you're not taking the cursed burial ground, is you don't get 1 necromancer with that particular territory type. You get 2. You get a level 1 through 5 and a level 1 through 3.
Yes.
And the only way you're going to get necromancers in your army if you go with the necropolis is if you take the dark tower, which gives you 1 level 1 through 3 necromancer. So
yeah,
it's a really tough decision now for Nightfalls. Since it is based off the Archlich, Ilyana, and then, of course, Rakovsky, I went with the Cursed Burial Ground because it is necromancer focused. But yeah, I could have easily gone Necropolis and been just as happy.
Yeah, I'm going to probably lean into the necropolis personally to get the revenants in there, mostly because I'm kind of sort of leaning more into the vampire side of stuff as well. I think it leans thematically into that more. You can have a revenant king that's a vampire looking chap as well. I think maybe, I don't know, that's my thinking. The necromancer level 5 is really important if you're going to do that with the cursed burial ground, with all of those skeletons. It gives you a real powerful thing. But I think for me, I want to sort of go more combat-y, which gives me that revenant prince. It gives me the options to sort of build it around having a prince or the king, and then with a sort of backed up with a vampire. So
yeah, you might be an old school Warhammer Fantasy player that has the vampire counts up in your attic or loft or what have you. That would be the way to do it. Use the king and revenant prince as counts as vampires, and then of course, you could also take a regular vampire from the crypt. The difference is that vampire doesn't have command like the king and prince do. So you can combine those 2 territories to come up with a pretty good mix of different types of vampires in different roles to run. So I do appreciate that option.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean that's where I'm going to go with that. So also they've got those beautiful metal sculpts there for them as well. And there's lots of other bits and pieces out there, but as I'm going to be sort of trying to stick with my goal of doing that, I'm going to use what they've got. So that's my main goal there. So yeah, So you went there with what was your thinking? Was mostly, I take it, then when you were thinking, oh, I'm going to do the necromancer. You wanted that thematic feel to it.
Yeah, exactly right. So for me, an Army of the Dead revolves around necromancers. There's nothing wrong with other approaches. It's just, personally how I think about it is those humans that have been corrupted into the path of necromancy, and the army is there to serve them. So that's definitely the way I went. And when you have skeletons in your army who are subject to spellcaster control, you really can't have too many spellcasters.
No, yeah.
As you know, when you play your opponents, if you defeat all the necromancers or all the spellcasters on the board, all those skeletons go away. Now,
definitely.
Yeah, you can either have a Revenant King or a Revenant Prince, and presumably they're going to be pretty well protected in the big unit. But I like strength in numbers, and so I went with Cursed Burial Ground for that reason.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, if you're going to go skeletons, you need those necromancers. Just 3 necromancers is good flavour just to keep your skeletons, because I go necromancer hunting, so if I see there's only 1 or 2 spellcasters, I'm thinking, how can I get to them and there's lots of skeletons, how am I going to make that army disappear really quickly? So I immediately think, well, where's he going to deploy them? How can I get that? Have I got anything that flies? Have I got a quick unit that I can get around the back, like Wolvers or something like that? So I can just run, not worry about anything, just run them straight up the flank and turn left or right, and then start charging into them at the back. So, and what I also find is they start moving them when they see that something's got round the back. And
yes,
and then it's a bit of chess like that, doesn't it? They go, well, I need to move him out of line of sight of the opponent's mage with fireball, so I don't get barbecued. So they start moving it around a bit. So it's quite fun.
I don't think there's anything more terrifying for an undead player than a dwarven high-level mage with both lightning bolt and looking glass.
Yes,
because there's no place to hide sometimes.
Absolutely, that's very true. So so that's my thinking. So because I'm going to put, in my head, I'm basically going to go push into the Revenant side of things. They are expensive, so we'll move into that. So I mean, the Revenant Prince is I think basically you got your options there with the Revenant Prince. It's similar to all the other ones. You got Champion and Command, which is obviously a level that's not too horrendous. You got 156 points for that, and then the Revenant King's obviously a big chunk of change as usual. But you can mount them, stick them in a chariot, which might be appealing. This is when I am going to deploy a chariot, Michael, because I'm going to definitely be doing mine as a Bronze Agey sort of Punic war type. I don't know, something like that. So when they use them, not the Dark Ages. But so he does that. He's got that really good ability. Activation is good at 4, though you have got undead and caring. So he's going to be activating pretty much all the time, to be honest. But not all the time, because nothing, but it's going to be a good chance of them activating. So I like the Revenant Prince. It's good, and you got that spellcaster, so you can just put a cheeky little spell on there as well, which is always nice.
Now, one of the nice things about running the Prince or King in an all undead army is there's some fairly complex rules involved with how they interact with the living races.
Yes.
In Oathmark. So by the fact that you're just having undead, you don't have to worry about some of those interactions, and they're always going to be able to use their command and give the bonus dice for units nearby when it comes to activation. Because skeletons really benefit from that bonus die, because they normally, with Unthinking, only get 1 dice.
They do, yes.
And at an activation of 3, which sounds really good, that's only 80% of the time, which is second worst to orcs and goblins. But once you get that second dice on there, then they become like elves, and they're activating 96% of the time. So, a couple of commanders supporting those skeletons, and they become really reliable when it comes to activation.
Absolutely, I think it's definitely need to be pulling that one out. And then you've got the you could use the Revenant General, but he's just he's a cheaper king without the champion, really, isn't he? Let's be honest. I don't. Have you ever used a general in any of your lists?
I have not used a general in any of my list.
No, I have.
I'm not against them. Chris
No.
and I talked about them quite a bit.
Yeah.
But at 280 points, that's a pretty big investment.
It is, and you're only getting that little increase on his command too. But I don't know. I don't know that it's worth the money for it, and it's not doing anything. It's not bringing anything massive to the party. He's still got one combat dice. He's got for that being able to command one extra unit. That's a big jump of nearly 80 points. Yeah, 80 odd points just to get for one extra unit to move. That's all I can see that it does. And yep. So you don't get champion dice with it, and you can move an extra command with it. So yeah, it doesn't float my boat for an extra 80 points.
I mean, it could be really decisive. Sometimes when that goes off properly, even with just 2 units, you can really break an opponent's flank or center with the right 2 hard-hitting units. You don't want to be, ordering units of 15 skeletons in the battle. You want to be doing it with Revenant cavalry or Revenant line breakers. And when you're doing stuff like that, you have 3 units going all at the same time, it can really overwhelm your opponent. And, it's a pretty scary picture if you think about it. If you have a whole horde of 3 undead units just trouncing down the center of the table at the same time, so it can be pretty cool as well.
I suppose that could be one way, but doesn't float my boat still.
Fair.
And then we got the Revenant Captain. He's 142 points. So what does he lose? He's you can get 2 of them instead of having the prince or the king. So they haven't got the champion dice, and I can see the point in having them in something like a goblin army. Again, maybe if I was thinking going a skeleton, I think that's where these would be more useful.
Skeletons and ghouls both really appreciate having some captains around. So you can almost get 2 of them for the price of 1 general, and that really extends your command radius because skeletons are cheap. You'll probably have a bunch of them.
That's one of the things you've got with the skeletons is you can have a lot of them, and you can activate. There's lots of positives with taking those skeletons, but there are some dangers in there. I regularly beat all in skeleton armies, but not always. So I have only played one person with that. So while I say regularly beat, I've only ever played one same chap. So it's a bit easier because I know what he's going to do half the time.
I find they don't have a lot of punch.
No, that's the problem. That is the problem. Yeah, and they're not going to do enough damage, especially if you've got dwarves. You put in some shielding on there or something like that. But so and then we move to our main sort of group of Revenant combat infantry. So we've got the warriors and the line breakers.
Here's what I really like about the undead, if I can just jump in.
Absolutely, Master.
Is they have like 3 different types of rank and file troops, which the breadth of them is much more expansive than any of the other races in Oathmark. Because you're going to talk about Revenant, line breakers, and warriors, but there's also ghouls and there's also skeletons. So you have different levels, which normally you would have to mix races in order to achieve that breadth, but in this case it's all combined in one. And they do different things, but mostly the only thing that changes for them is the activation in the fight. Whereas, so you have two big changes, right? Your fight's going to go, or your defense, or your activation. Most of the other races, when you're looking at elves and you have regular soldiers, then you have the Path Guard, they're both activation 3.
Yep.
But for these guys, you're going from activation 4 to 5 to 3, and that's what makes them so interesting as a single faction army. Is they seem to have all these different types of options to fulfill your different roles in your army, all in the one army list.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Because when you go to pick a, if you went single species in the basic book, or you go with the main rule book, sorry, you've got your elite, you've got your green. If you go through it and break it down, you've got your 4 different types of troops. Elf, dwarf, human, orcs, and goblins. So they bring different things, but this has got one. You've got the one army list, and it's all there for you, which I think why it lends itself to having that one. Like we've said, it lends itself to that one species, or one sort of type of army in there. So and then you've got like you said, you've got the special rule where actually command and things like that from non-undead things can't be affected, undead and all that sort of stuff. So that's right, isn't it? You can't. Yeah, I'm right. Yeah, I was thinking, is he talking rubbish?
Yeah.
So no. So it's definitely got everything you need in there, and you get to your revenant guys, and they are definitely, I would suggest, the elite of the army. They're the hard-hitting guys. They've got the higher point values. You've got the cavalry. If we start the cavalry, you've got a defense 13, 2 combat dice. It's 70 points. We are talking basically same as human heavy cavalry there, aren't we?
Yeah, but for 20 more points, so even heavier in some respects.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you've got the slightly lower activation of 4, so you're doing very similar, sort of closer to the elf price of 75. So yeah, they're definitely your hard-hitting guys in this army list that you're going to need. It can break your dwarf lines up, or elf lines or something like that, or go up against the human cav and not always come out well, but better than a lot of others.
So some people might blanch at the 70 points for the Revenant Cavalry, but they are definitely some of the hardest hitting units in this army list. One thing that you can do, we'll talk about later, is bring them back after they've been defeated.
Yes.
But that is balanced out by the fact that once you start losing undead, they tend to crumble. So while you might be able to bring them back, they're also going to be disappearing faster than normal cavalry. So it's an interesting mix between those two extremes of being able to bring them back, but also losing them faster.
Yeah, if you can get, I think my experience is if you can get them into, I've been charged by them a couple of times, and if they get into you and you do the damage, that's when it hurts, because you haven't got a charge bonus. They've got that charge bonus, so you're going in with 3 or 4 against their 13, and then all of a sudden you're hitting on 9s or 10s. So that's when it hurts. And depending if you're going into infantry or something like that, depending what spear or something like that, it still hurts. That charge is very important to the Revenant Cavalry, I think. And like you said, if you can hold on, lose 1 or 2, and you've got somebody behind with a cheeky little spell, and he can resuscitate them. So if you've got the right spell and you roll a 10, you can bring back 2. In fact.
No, that's only for.
Oh, so only skeletons reanimate.
Yeah, only skeletons.
Yeah.
One is enough.
Yes.
Yeah, 1 is enough. But if you're running them in units of 5 and you lose 1, that's essentially losing 2.
Yes,
because your morale is going to be a -2 at that point, and you're going to lose an additional guy. So
yeah,
they definitely like running in units of more than 5, so that you're not losing more than 1, hopefully.
Yeah, and you have to remember that, guys, is when you're they're not taking a morale, but they are losing casualties instead.
Now, Matt, you're a little bit more worldly on other model ranges for us. This is like the first unit we come to where we don't have some awesome North Star miniatures.
We don't currently have any.
Revenant Cavalry. Do you have anything for an aspiring Necromancer to
I
purchase.
suppose if I was going to do anything, I would, depending on what sort of theme you're going to go with. There's obviously GW have got some stuff out there. You can go old hammer and middle hammer or whatever hammers there are out there. There's the vampire lords. There's some bits and pieces out there. There are some war games. Atlantic. Have they got cavalry out yet? No, they haven't got any cavalry out. But what I would be inclined to do, and this is what I have to say, I would be doing, is getting something from either something like Gripping Beast, the Goth elite cavalry, something like that, with the or the Cataphracts, Byzantine, the Roman heavy cavalry. I think that lends its weight into those sort of things. That look, that feel, that look of an ancient sort of army being raised from the dead, and then using if you're going to buy Revenant plastics, which you probably will, I would be, you're going to have more than enough heads, and replacing those heads because they fit well. It's not the only ones. Victrix does some, so there's plenty of manufacturers out there. So it's probably a conversion job, I have to say, or going in to look at some metals that are out there.
Do you have any experience with the Mantic miniatures? Because they do have an Undead Revenant Cavalry Regiment.
I do. I have some experience. My mother said, if you've got nothing good to say about something, don't say anything, and so I'll leave it there.
Okay.
I'm not a fan. This is all I can say about Mantic figures. They may have changed, but my last purchase, I wasn't impressed. So I bought some of their elf cavalry.
Yeah, I got the elf chariots and the elves on them. The chariots themselves seem rather hardy and fine. The elves that have on them, they're kind of spindly. So I didn't know if that would be the same.
I sort of come from that point of view. I may be proven wrong. People may say, "Oh, I love them." I haven't looked at them. The horses on the elf cavalry were just the size of a small tank, and then you got a tiny little dude on top of it. It's all fey and effeminate, which is not a problem because you get that from an elf. But yeah, I didn't like them. So, but yeah, if that's what you like, go and get them. I'm not telling anybody to what to buy, but it's not my. I would get. That's personally, I'd go out and get those. Look at those Goths, those Cataphract type. That's what I see in my head. Some of the GW stuff is nice though. They've got lots of bits and pieces out there.
I just don't know what scale their Age of Sigmar stuff is anymore.
It
seems to be getting bigger and bigger.
I wouldn't be buying no Age of Sigmar stuff personally. I would have to go. I would look to the older stuff just to fit with the army. Sort of, if you're going to be buying North Star and other bits and pieces, they fit in the 28mm scale. Where the Age of Sigmar is, the dwarves are bloody bigger than my elves. So it's like, what's up with that? So that's it's horses for courses, but yeah, I'd be looking to do something like that. There's quite a lot out there actually. You got there's some really nice ranges. Foundry do a lot of metal, so there's some old Foundry stuff that the Perry twins did back in the day. They don't got all their ancients, but they're closer to 25. But they're nice, and you've got the if you go to Footsore miniatures, they've got sort of your Greeks and that sort of stuff. So if you wanted to go Bronze Age, you could go back there, and they do metal and bits and pieces like that. You'd go back and then do some head exchanges on those as well. So I think the Revenant Cavalry is definitely a conversion job, or you go and buy purpose plastics out there. But I'm sure there's. I haven't looked enough to say that, and I was aware that there's no cavalry for them at the moment at North Star, even in their cobblestone ranges and all the other bits and pieces they do. So, but yes,
all right.
Okay, so then we've got the Revenant Line Breakers and Warriors. So we definitely got those guys in plastic. There's the same box. We got the metals as well. So I'll be purchasing a few boxes of those to make up my army. Your Warriors, they're basically I would say they're as comparable as a dwarf, aren't they? I mean,
Except
fight 2.
much faster.
Yeah, and they've got that 6 movement, defense 10, combat dice 1, so yeah, and 17 points. So actually, and they got undead and uncaring again. So the one thing we'll keep talking, and you'll see it in the thing that says shield. What you will notice is none of these undead guys have actually got any shielding. So you do walk into the death of into arrow, but you're not taking as many casualties because of the penalty you get for shooting.
Yeah, the undead rule.
Exactly. So it swings and roundabouts again. But yeah, they're good. And then you've obviously got the line breakers, which is for an extra 3 points, you get that extra fight, basically. I think is pretty damn good actually for 20 points.
Yeah. So I think Revenants are the backbone of any undead army. I think they have enough punch to push through with enough resilience to not lose too many. When I play with my Revenant warriors, I'm always pretty impressed with how they do. But it's really the Revenant line breakers that carry the day.
Yeah.
And for just 3 points, for 20 figures, if you're doing a full ranked up unit, that's 60 points. It seems worth it because the only thing that for 3 points, what you're gaining is an additional fight value of 3 instead of 2.
Yeah, and you've got that if so you're hitting on with that extra 3 lines, you got 20, you're hitting on 6s, so you're making a big crunchy noise. It's something you're not going to get a lot out of. The difference between 5 and 6 people you mean for 60 points is difference between taking out a whole line, I would say.
Yeah, in every other species, the difference between the warriors and the line breakers, who are both, up armored with that heavy armor, is the warriors have shielding, but in this case, you don't. So it does make the line breakers very attractive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's because I keep going back to line breakers in the other species, and I keep sort of walking away from them because they're very expensive, and without that shielding, they are a absolute bloody archery magnet. They tend up to be marching up the middle and turn into a pincushion before they're doing anything. And when you're spending that amount of points for a sacrificial unit, I'm not so sure. I don't know. Maybe it's the people I'm playing against, but they always seem it's like a couple of lines breaker units or something, and they're like, I must destroy them. But
and they're slower, than the regular foot soldiers, but with the Revenants, they're not. So they have both the speed to get there and the resiliency to get there, which makes them maybe the best line breakers in the game in some respects.
I think so. I definitely think so. And then you whack a bit of fleet feet on them or something like that, and you've got you've basically got a cav unit, haven't you?
You do, minus the charge bonus. You can rank them, 20 figures in a unit. So
so I can see me having at least 2 units of those in my army. I have to say, for 2,500 points. So, and then you Revenant champion. Again, you're not seeing anything new that you haven't seen in a different champion before. Apart from he's got fight 4, which is really tasty. He's got 3 combat dice, so he's got that champion dice and the magic items. So, and you depending on which territories you pick, if you're going to duplicate, you could probably get a few more. But you're looking at if you're taking the line breakers, which I would be doing, you're taking 2 champions. You pop them into your line breakers and they're really ugly.
And they do have the magic item special rule if you're looking for a good magic item to have, Banner of Courage. Because what you do is you figure out what your morale modifier is going to be after the combat's over. You're automatically going to pass the test, but you're going to lose some additional models. If you're saving 20-point Revenant line breakers every turn with that Banner of Courage, it quickly pays for itself.
Absolutely. And you're activating a little bit better as well. Oh no, you don't activate on it, it's just morale. So then so we bring it into the Revenant Captain, which we've kind of covered already. 142 points is I've gone to the wrong page. We come then to the Revenant Chariot. So we have got chariots for all the races now, because that was obviously for a time there was only just the Revenant Chariot. So yeah, the benefits and out there, what I do know is it's being worked on. I know that much. So I don't know if we're going to see that next year, but I understand that that's being worked on. So my as Littlefinger in Game of Thrones said, my little bird. I don't know. One of them said he had his little birds. Some little bird whispered in my ear anyway. So
yeah, the Master of Spies.
yes, the Master of Spies. So yeah, with the Reverend Chariots. So what's your thinking?
I'm not a big fan of chariots. I defend their use in the game. I think, it's a fantasy game. It's kind of fun to have in there. But I find their limitations on maneuver to be too frustrating for me to use. Now, I say this as they constantly run over my guys when I play against other people. But as far as a personal play style is concerned, I don't like all of the handcuffs that come with them when it comes to moving them around the board.
Right, fair enough. I think, yeah. I mean, they're lovely to look at. Again, and you depending on what you're doing. If your opponent's got any werewolf without, he's going to make sure that there's some putting down terrain that's going to break it up to make sure you get your. He's going to stop you from moving around the battlefield, basically. So you can block up whole sections of the battlefield with just a few easily placed items of scenery. So I think they've got their place, like you said. If you decided to do a set piece battles and stuff like that, where they're not just doing like the meeting engagement that we sort of kind of play, though. You could probably set it up so that you can have that avenue and you can see your 4 chariots charging down towards your enemy, and I'm sure if you had it would be disheartening. I think if you saw 4 of them charging at you. Especially if one of them had to you got a champion in there or something like that, they're going to make a big crunchy noise when they hit you. So, I mean, they've got a good fight, they've got good combat dice, they've got everything that you need, and you've got that stick the archer on there, which is quite handy as well. Actually, you can just sort of pop it in. If you can kill one guy on a 10-man unit, all of a sudden they have not added in that extra line before you go in and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
No. Never the bow. Never the bow.
Okay.
Too expensive for a shoot one dice. No.
Fair enough.
But everything else, I agree.
It's free. It's a 25 points for a free attack. So,
well, it's 25 points for a free attack.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. I haven't tested it, so I haven't got a guiding stick, so a rod to line in the sand, so to measure it against. So yeah, but yeah, I suspect when the model comes out, it will be beautiful.
They are super good on the charge. Yes. So, like, if you're running one of them, you win initiative, you're gonna get that charge off. If you're running 2 of them, you're gonna get the charge off with one of them almost every time. So, another thing, you don't have to worry about them getting shaken or anything like that. So, solid choice.
I think actually the way they're portrayed in the book is very much how they were, used in real life combat. They were okay against lots of things, but if they went up against anything serious, they were in trouble very quickly. They were a shock unit with against light units. They weren't set up. You didn't have them setting up going, right, where's the heavily armed unit out there, let's bundle into them, because let's be honest, you got a couple of horses and some wood around you, you charge into a phalanx of pike. There's only going to be one outcome on that. So the good flanking force was a mass surprise, and they asked, you got blades whizzing around. I don't know if they ever did that. Is that a thing, or is that Hollywood? I don't know, but
it could be. It could be in the marches.
Oh, definitely in the marches. But so I would probably be quite scared about that. But they were more of a sort of a status symbol for a long time, weren't they? So I know the Iceni, which is Boudica. had used them because they were tiny. They were tiny little things because they had a replica where I used to live of one in an Iceni village that we used to go to that they'd rebuilt, and they were not big things. It was two blokes and that was it, and it looked like if you threw a big stone at it, it would fall over, but there you go. The ones you see in GW look like small, well, they look like bloody a truck, don't they, basically? So so then we move on to, I suspect, what everybody is wanting to do with their necromancer, with their undead army, which is the necromancers. So we've got 1 to 5 as normal, going up the scale, going from 50 to 400 points. They are not indifferent to any other spellcaster. They're basically sort of same stats as a human spellcaster.
For sure, except for the one little option number 3 at the very bottom. For 10 points, you can make them into a lich.
Yes.
Now, this is important if you're using the necromancer because they're only activation 5, same as a human wizard. You tend to keep your wizards around people with the command special ability.
Yes.
Now, if your necromancer is not a lich, he's not going to benefit, or she's not going to benefit from that extra command dice from a revenant prince or captain.
Nope.
So you're going to want to lich up if all you're having as far as leadership in your army is undead commanders. Additionally, it's going to give you the special ability Undead, which makes them pretty resolute against Archer Fire.
Yeah.
Other than Archer Fire.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're not going to have that mage picked off by those 5 rangers so easily, which is always good fun. But yeah, it's a handy little option there on there. But they've got some really good spells, which we'll kind of move on to closer to the end when we get to there. And then we move on to the skeletons. So there's quite a few bits and pieces for the skeletons. So again, we've got the you got your line troops, but here we've got soldiers, spearmen, and archers, and they are all cheap. They are all fairly decent movement, but they are not particularly good at fighting or shooting. In fact, skeleton archers skeleton archers are about as useful as chocolate fire guards sometimes if they get down to a 2 fewer number. So, but yeah, they're not a punch. They are there for mass units, I suppose.
They are very effective screening forces to keep your. It's more for mixed race armies. Or mixed species armies, in that you can put the skeletons out front and they can take the arrows much better than some other species can. But you really don't have to screen for your revenants, right? Because they have the same ability.
Absolutely.
Now the skeletons are cheaper, so if you want to be losing less expensive models, I guess there is that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, they're just out there for bodies to either win objectives or something like that. Because I don't know if I've played too many games where my skeletons actually survive. They tend to go down quickly. Yeah,
I think, especially if somebody gets a crunchy unit into them with some decent dice, you're a champion, all of a sudden, there's somebody swinging at them. They're all defense 9, so you've got a dwarf line breaker unit or a elf light, something like that comes into it with a champion die, and
don't even start with a monster coming in at them.
Oh yeah, well that's giant, or then all of a sudden it's boink boink boink. I've seen 2 lines of skeletons disappear through morale and combat losses, all with one swing of a club from my giant. So 7 or 8 figures disappearing all of a sudden. So and so 2 turns of that, and they are dust, but they are quite handy in that, like you said, you can use them for screening, marching up in front of them, and especially if you've got the you're using a necromancer that's sitting there, and you lose 1 or 2 to archery, you just cast a spell back into it, and you regen them back up. So you can bring 1 or 2 back depending on your dice throw. So and it takes that back up. The other good thing about it is I think you deployed that tactic several times, which is you'd have a block of 20 and then a smaller block of 5 or 20 other 5 or 10 guys behind it, and you could feed those replacements in as they were marching up, which I think at the prices you're paying at for a skeleton soldier at 11 points is easily be affordable, and you get to out activate your opponents and stuff like that. So it's quite useful little bit sort of thing there, because if you have a look at that, you got out of those 3 units, archer, spearman, and the soldier, you can have up to 12 units there without hitting any limits. That's a lot of activations when it comes to a table.
That's a great point. You can definitely pad your activation count with some cheap skeleton units.
Yeah. So I mean, also skeleton soldier is 220 points for a 20-man unit. So you got 2 of them. It's 400 points. Yeah, that's only, and then you add. So you're at 600 points for 3 units. So that's 9 units, and then you've got something extra chuck in there up to 2,000 points. So depending on the size of the game you're playing, you're definitely going to be doing a lot more than your opponent is. So that's what I like about them. And obviously you've got that unthinking, uncaring undead thing about it as well. So.
And we'd be remiss to say that like an undead army without some skeletons doesn't really look like an undead army. They do add character.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a necessary part of an undead army, and I will be having a few. Well, I need some archers, so I'll be definitely popping those boys in there. And you get the skeleton champion. Would I put a skeleton champ? I don't, for 50 points. I don't know.
Every time I don't, I wish I had.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm a big fan of them.
Okay, well there you go. Okay, well you've heard it from the.
I think champions in general are just really good buys, and the more I play this game, the more I find that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. God, there's a question I haven't thought about. Can you actually make them heroic?
I've been spending the last 40 minutes looking to see, because in the back of my mind, I've read someplace where like unthinking can't be heroic, but I can't find that anywhere in this particular supplement.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. We need to find that out, because I'm just thinking that would actually make them quite nasty as well. Actually, you get the right trait in there, you could be having quite a useful little skeleton unit. That might be worth investigating it. Or guys, if you know about it before we get to it, please give us a shout. And then we move to the ghoul.
Interesting.
Indeed. I suppose the obvious thing here is that zombies have completely been missed from this. And I know a lot of people are going, oh, why haven't we got zombies? Why haven't we got zombies? Zombies aren't a European monster. Of old. Joe, in the podcast, he said he took these from mostly European sort of legends and myths and all that sort of stuff. And zombies sort of, I think, African. Are they African? I don't know.
I think like Caribbean for sure.
Are they? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right. Okay. So you've got that. So the zombie. Oh yeah. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Voodoo and all that sort of stuff. So that's where the zombies kind of has come from. So a ghoul is more of a, well, as it says, it ingests the undead flesh. So it's 15 points. And it's got that nimble and the wild charge that you were talking about. The wild charge is quite a useful little thing to have, I find.
Their straight stat line is kind of like a human soldier, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Activation 5, movement 6, fight 2, defense 9, 1 combat dice, 1 health at 15 points. But the advantages they get are pretty big. Undead and uncaring, so you don't have to worry about missile fire as much, and you certainly don't have to worry about breaking.
Nope.
Nimble, the more I play this game, much like Champions, the more I find nimble to be such a powerful keyword.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then wild charge, always good.
Yeah.
Because you can do the math and figure out kind of what you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes you might get, it's like, well, if I've got 4 kills, if I roll that, I might get 5, and actually that's going to put him on a 9 or 10 to roll for his morale, or a 10 to morale, and it's like, well, we're going to roll that just to see if I get it, even though they get a re-roll. Okay, I may lose another 1. Does that mean I'm going to lose 3? But I'm still going to win the combat, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I like wild charge. I like wild charge as a skill.
And you see it mostly on like orcs, and your concern with orcs is like every orc you lose, the chances of you failing that morale test become more and more real.
Yes,
you're not worried about that with the ghouls.
No. They're just standing there going, yeah, okay. We're going to eat you a bit more.
Yeah. And if you want to run zombies, this is the obvious counts as.
It is basically, yeah. If you've got zombie figures, run them as ghouls. As simple as that. Yeah.
They'll be the fast, nimble ghoul zombies, not the slow Frankenstein zombie.
Oh, yeah, it's the ones from the new Living Dead films where they're all running around like lunatics. So on Red Bull. So then we move on to support units, I suppose that's what we would call them. We go to the skeletal light catapult and skeletal ballista. So I think they speak for themselves.
I think they're even more important in the undead list. Now, I haven't tried skeleton archers. We already covered them. But if you're looking to do damage from range, it is with the war engines, right? You're not going to be doing it with the skeleton archers.
Nope.
So you do have to go with the catapults or the ballistas. Now, between the two, the catapult is definitely better than the ballista at the same price.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would be definitely taking that light catapult, to be honest. You've got better range. For starters, you've got the it's the same stats, but that extra range is just that's what it is for me. It's more useful, and it can take like an extra hit as well. So and the activation, it's pretty much going to be firing every time. So my friend uses the ballistas, which can be a pain in the ass, to be honest. But but I would be taking the catapult. So
you take the ballistas because you want to be a good sport. You take the catapults because you want to win.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. And then we move to the Wraith. Oh, let's talk about the Wraith. I hate the Wraith.
God, still have nightmares about this.
Yeah. So the Wraith is an activation 3 and a movement 6, fight 4, combat dice 4, defense 4, but it's got shadow form, and therein lies the problem, people. It's just that shadow form just makes it a pain in the backside, doesn't it?
They're nuts. They're absolutely nuts.
Yep. And you can have 4 of the buggers. I've played against 2, and they just sit there and so it's a nightmare. The nimble, horrific. So if you're playing against, you're playing against those guys, non-undead guys, or whatever, they are going to be rolling 1 dice as well for when they probably do lose. So and if you're not aware of what shadow form is, basically it means that unless you have a magic weapon, you can only roll a maximum of 2 combat dice. Basically, you're trying to burn it with some torches that luckily somebody's carrying or something.
It means you can't shoot them from range.
Nope.
And you can still throw spells at them, but once they get into combat with that defense 12 very high, and combat dice 4, they are just super effective. Yeah,
they are a mean part of the army. 154 points is a very good price for them. If I'm going to have at least 2, I would say, in my army. They're cheaper than giants. I think they're more effective than giants, to be honest.
Absolutely more effective. I don't have them in my kingdom because I find them to be off-putting for my opponent. Because when I fought Chris with it, it was a terrible experience.
Yeah.
It was not fun.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah, I don't like my people I play, so I'm going to do no. I don't. It's not I've got. The fact is I've actually got 2 Wraith Knights for Frostgrave, so I have the models already. So I will utilize them. So and then we go to the Corpse Fire. I have not played against or played with a Corpse Fire. Have you?
Don't know anything about them.
Okay, so
Wasn't interested in the fluff, and
yeah,
kind of passed them by.
fair enough. They are basically what it says, a big bundle of flames. So and it has a monster, so it immediately gets a champion dice. It's got undead, uncaring, and thinking. It's got fire breath, horrific, and regeneration, and it's got. But you do need a spellcaster, and 180 points. It's quite expensive, but it's got that shootability as well. So with its fire breath.
Well, you know you're gonna have spellcasters in this all undead army, so
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not a problem.
No. So it's got the fire breath, which I literally just trying to work out what it was, but I can't find it. So
it's in the basic rule book, and essentially
right. Oh, it's the same thing as the Dragon's got, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
So it's basically a free attack before you go into combat, which is a bit cheeky. And this gets 2 combat dice. So and it's on a 25 by 25 base as well. So it's I don't know. I've not used it. It's probably not some. I don't know if there's even a model that's that would suit that's out there that I could think that would fit it. But yeah, it doesn't speak to me.
You probably can't get these in the UK, but here in the States you can buy Roman candles, and
All right, yeah. I know.
just shoot those off in the gaming store, and quite the effect.
That'd be quite amusing. Then we move to the vampire. So yeah, wow, 312 points.
Interesting figure right here. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. So vampire, I mean, thematically, I want one just because I want a vampire in my army. I've been told by Nick that they are going to release an Oathmark vampire.
Okay.
So there is going to be a figure in the not so distant future. I'm told they're hoping to get it out in the first quarter. That's what he said to me. So I assume that's what he meant. He said there's going to be a vampire squeezed in, so I'm assuming it's for Oathmark. So I'm really super interested to see the figure. There's some lovely vampire figures out there, though. Some really nice ones. I mean, the GW ones are phenomenally beautiful. The new ones that they've been doing for all these bits and pieces, I looked at them. They are fantastic, but they are massive. The models need massive bases because they've got lots of flowing robes and doing all sorts of stuff. And you know, all kudos to you if you're going to go and do that. And I'm not.
See, I think I got the pack of 2 from Deep Cut Miniatures for like $6, and they work perfectly as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a couple in mind. I've got one. I've actually got a metal one already, and it's actually squeezing a heart out, blood out of a heart. And it's a really good cast. So I think he may be, but I'm going to see if I like the North Star one, which I suspect I will do. And well, we can have 2 really. I could get 2 crits because I'm going to go single species. Why the devil not? I could have 2 vampires. But obviously,
here's
624 points, maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. But what we get with that is a monster. So we get that, and we've got an activation of 2, which is basically the same as a dragon. We got a move 6 and a fight of 3, defense of 12, and a combat dice of 3, and a health 5. So it's expensive for those stats, but then you move to the extra bits, which is those discorporate. So I think is a massively handy skill.
I think they're interesting because they're pretty good spellcasters, but not for that price, and they're decent in melee combat.
Yes,
but not good or great. They are, however, very resilient and hard to take down. And These are one of the guys I think about investing some spells in to kind of boost up their capabilities, like the one that gives them an additional combat dice.
Yes.
Would be good, or things like that.
Yeah, and the one thing you do also get is shielding. This is the for this guy, and my friend of mine also, when he fields his vampire, puts the armor of silver sword,
Star Silver,
Star Silver on him as well, which makes him even more pain in the ass. So so he's having a good chance of brushing off some there, and you've got Stone Gaze, which is a really annoying little spell because again it's one of those freebies. He doesn't use any activations up, he just stands there and goes, I get to stare at your unit, one bloke falls dead. So you get too close to him and he's staring at you, and that's really annoying when it's a cavalry unit that you've geared up to charge him, and you lose your whole rank, which yeah, happened to me. So, but yeah, I think thematically for me, undead army, vampire go hand in hand, and that's kind of where I'm going to be going with mine. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to play well, but I'm not worried about that. So,
Discorporate really allows you to do some fun things, because
it does.
Being the spellcaster like they are, if you kind of use he's one of your last activations on your turn, you can discorporate him into a flanking position.
Yep.
And then activate him very quickly the next turn. He can cast Fireball or Bone Shards or one of those spells to do some damage at the flank of that unit, maybe shake them a little bit, and then charge into them and maybe break them all in one go.
Yep.
So there's some potential combos there that can make them really worth their points.
And if you're being super cheeky and you go out of race and you pop him in with an elf list and you glamour him somewhere, and then he discorporates to somewhere and then does all the rest of it, people sort of look at you in horror. So why are you doing that? I just thought that I had thought of that on several occasions, thinking, well, I could glamour him, do that, and I think, I haven't done it yet, but yeah, it's a bit gamey. But then we move to Barrow Worm, which is basically a massive worm that is dead.
Don't know nothing about them.
Okay, so I have come up against barrow worms on several occasions. We used to play, which we now know is incorrectly, that the only way you would get a barrow worm is if you had the barrow worm spell and you had paid for the barrow worm. But that is not correct. You get the barrow worm if you get the territory, and you're going to use the spell if you don't have the territory. So I had my friend paying for a barrow worm that he could only cast for when if he could cast it, which is not fair.
Yeah, you're wrong on two accounts there, right?
Okay.
So you're saying he can only summon it, and then so that's wrong.
Yeah. There was.
And then he has to pay for that summon creature during the army creation, which is totally wrong.
Yes. So I think we played that for like 3 months like that. So, and I was like, why is this in here? And then somebody was like talking about it on the old face page, and it was like, oh, I've conned you for the last 3 months. But to be honest, he had the same rule book as me. So, yeah.
So he's like, he just doesn't read the rules. He relies on you to tell him how it actually works.
Yeah. But it's got health of 16. It's monstrous. It's got nimble. It's got horrific. It's undead and caring, and it can go through water. If you can activate it, that is, because it's an activation 8, but it's got a fight of 8. It is bloody lethal if it gets moving. I've had it tear through a couple of units, and you've got a choice of sitting there looking at it and not charging it and hoping it doesn't activate, which means you can try and do that, but if it does, you got problems, because if you charge into it, that fight of 8, you know what I mean? It's a fight of 8. that's going to hurt. And it's got champion dice and so there's lots of bad things going on there for you.
You're not killing the thing, are you? I can't imagine any circumstances where you kill this thing.
No, I don't think I've killed one. I generally don't think I killed one.
I don't know how it would be possible in an 8-turn game.
Yeah, No, just my units just never survived long enough. One or two rounds of combat, basically, they're breaking really quickly and disintegrating because of the casualty levels. So you're probably in the combat maybe 2, maximum of 3 rounds with it.
You're not shooting it down with arrows, right?
No, you're not.
It's undead, so whatever you do, it's going to be halved.
Yeah. So it is a beast, but that activation 8 means it sits around thinking about it for a long time because it's got undead, uncaring, and unthinking. You only got that 1 die. Well, not just because, but you got that 1 dice because of its unthinking. So
yeah, and then it doesn't benefit from a commander being around because it's a monster. So
exactly,
30% of the time it's going to romp you, but
exactly,
again, you're not going to kill it.
So it can be lethal, but also at the same time it can just sort of sit there and scratch its head. But it's one of those. It's a bit like when you put a lindworm out, or you put a couple of giants out. People stare at it. It's an attraction piece, and people think, well, I've got to avoid that, or I've got to throw lots of stuff at that. I think that's its benefit. Actually, I think Joe's done very clever with that. So I think people see these big monsters and think, gee, that's going to just, because you think, wow, that's going to really tear me to bits. But well, can't charge you. It's got like 20% chance of activating. So is it going to activate? If you're playing 6 or 7 turns, what's that? 1 turn, it can maybe charge 1 turn.
Now, if you want to lose all your friends, bring a halfling wizard along with you. They have metal at casting number 5, and it can be cast on any friendly unit. And the next time that unit would roll for an activation, it automatically activates. So,
yeah, absolutely. I didn't think of that. Ouch. You can have a neck. Yes, that's sort of. Shh! Don't tell anybody.
Yeah. No, it's already on the face page. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's out there. It's out in the world. The genie has been released. So, yeah, I mean that's kind of it. I think we've gone through there quite a lot. It's been quite comprehensive in covering that. I mean, I can see me basically having that Revenant core and with some vampires and some wraiths, and maybe a couple of units of smaller units of skeletons to do what as we sort of kind of talked about, or maybe some ghouls, because I've got some ghouls. I haven't got skeletons. I haven't decided yet. But North Star do the skeletons, don't they? So
they're brilliant skeletons too.
Yeah. So that might just have to be done just to make sure I've got those. But yeah, I think the core of my army is going to be Revenants with some nasty little beasts and the odd spellcaster. So, but from that point of view, I think this is actually, like we said at the beginning, I think it's one of the most sort of flexible army lists that are out there.
Totally agree.
You can do stuff with. So, yeah, and you can do lots of things with it. I think there's lots of models out there. North Star have got a bucket load of stuff for Frostgrave and all that sort of stuff. They're undead. They do Lich Lord. They do Wraiths. They do all that sort of stuff there. So you got all those, and we're not being paid by North Star, by the way. But there's a mass of undead stuff out there. If you're printing, on my word, if you're 3D printing your figures, there is just a ton of stuff. Absolute masses of stuff. You can't move. You can't shake a stick quick enough to point it all out. But yeah, I suppose we're Oathwire and we're Oathmark, so I like the aesthetic that they produce. So that's where I would be heading towards mine. Like I said, I'm going to try and do it.
I like their prices as well.
Yeah, I like their prices as well. So they are a very good price out in the world of these things. I mean, you can look at STLs, and you're still paying like £3 for some figures, like champions and stuff. When you're being bigger models and stuff like that, you're probably paying less. But I don't know. I've got a 3D printer and I'm using it. Am I to fill holes? I suspect mostly. where there's range gaps. But if there's ranges out there, I prefer to have my metal and then my plastics and then my resin. So my resins for different. I'm printing 10 mil buildings at the moment for my 10 mil armor thing. So I got a goblin villager just printed off, which is super cool. But it's for things like that where nobody's making 10 mil goblin villages. I've scaled down some buildings that I paid next to nothing for, and they're not available to me. So that's how I'm using it. But each their own. There's lots of people out there with lots of stuff, and all are welcome at the table of Oathmark. So that's my thoughts anyway.
Agreed.
So we've been going for quite a while on that in-depth look. So we will move on. Excuse me, to our 10 questions.
Okay, we're going to come back to the spells some other time, guys.
I think so. I think we need to. We're at about an hour already, so
if you're still with us, we appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's an up and coming. The Range of the Shadow Deep one. When's that out? Soon. It's an hour and 23 minutes because me and Robert kind of got carried away quite a lot, and then it was done, and I was like, well, it is what it is.
We're going to top that today, mate.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've got to have to change that around. So we will miss that, and we're going to go straight to. I'll tell you what. Let's the 10 questions I was going to do for from Oathbreakers, but we've covered it so specifically. I think it just takes it away. So I think what we'll do.
You know, my performance on episode 45 was so good. I feel like I should be on break until somebody beats that.
I'm not going to be honest with you.
10 for 10.
Nobody's had even 10 for 10. I've got 10 questions, and most of them are at 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And they've all not necessarily. Nobody other than you. I think you did 2 minutes, 2 seconds, didn't you? And got all 10 correct. So
just amazing. So I think I can almost retire from 10 questions at this point. It took me a while to best Chris at trivia time and get all 3 there.
Absolutely.
I feel like I was right out of the gate with the 10 questions. So
yeah,
let's move on.
You're the leader.
Yeah, if somebody beats me, I might come out of retirement.
I think that sounds a good idea. Okay, so we are going to go to silly questions because silly questions have to be asked. So, okay, we have got
1 second.
Yeah, we are at the silly question time. So here we go. And the silly question for today is: you are on a secret mission to create a false religion and convert as many Skaven as you can to this secret false religion. But what is the religion?
Okay, so I'm on a secret mission. What kind of kingdom am I from? I'm just from an enemy kingdom here?
Yeah, I think you're from a well, let's go dwarf. Dwarf kingdom. I feel dwarf and Skaven are not friends.
So I'm not trying to spread the message of Christopher's religion of what even is it?
Who knows?
The mountain mist or ball gath.
Yeah.
We're not looking to bring the good word of that to them. And it's the purpose of this is to undermine the Skaven army's efforts when it comes to war, right?
I think definitely it is, yes. So
they have the horned rat, that's for sure.
They do.
And the horned rat drives them forward. I think I would want to create a religion which encourages, kind of laying around, not doing much, napping a lot. And they seem already, predisposed to follow animals with the horned rat.
Okay.
So I think if I introduce some sort of corgi deity. Now, supposedly corgis are a working breed of dog. Matt, my 2 corgis have never worked a day in their life, and would be very much opposed to it. They just sit around the house and eat and sleep and lounge about on furniture.
Sounds like a hard life.
It really is. But you know what they're not doing? They're not like going over to the next house and raiding and pillaging.
Well, there you go. They're not conquering and trying to overthrow the kingdom of man.
No, they're too busy. And so if we use them as a model for the Skaven to emulate, I think we might be onto something now. as far as like divine powers that corgis might have, that Skaven could potentially relate to, because you like to see yourself in the deity that you worship.
Indeed,
they got like bottomless stomachs.
they
And,
definitely have.
I do know for a fact, if I recall my GW lore correctly, Skaven are pretty voracious little beasties.
They are. They're hungry.
And so they could definitely have that in common. They're cunning. Corgis are cunning. Skaven are cunning, and they're both small in stature, but they don't think they're small in stature.
This is very true.
So I think it's a good marriage.
I think actually, you forgot one thing. Actually, a pack of corgis could be quite threatening.
But at the same time, you can dress them up so they're not threatening at all.
That's very true. Put a little Welsh hat on them or something.
A little Welsh hat, according to Welsh lore, fairies ride them through the forest.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a true thing, sir. But people will put saddles on them and put like little other figures on top of them, like cowboys or Santa Claus or things like that. So we could really change the Skaven dress code to make them look cute instead of threatening. So even when they're in a pack of 20, you're still not threatened by them.
That sounds, definitely. I'm loving that. So the horned corgi, maybe.
I don't even think you need a horn, because the two huge ears that are like radar dishes are essentially two horns. They're just softer and more useful. So like the big-eared corgi god or gods, I think could really gain a foothold in Skaven society and cause them to just relax, enjoy life, and not do much outside the four corners of their little houses.
Look for some cheese and be happy with it.
Occasional walk would make their day.
Yeah. Not eating some sort of flesh of other races.
Yeah.
Overdoing all that sort of malarkey. No, I like it, sir. I think we the Skaven god of long-eared corgis has now been brought into the lexicon of the marshes, and
but the funny thing is, no one's ever going to hear about them because they don't go anywhere.
Oh, they just sit there.
Yeah, so they're there. You just don't know they're there.
That's why there's
anything.
That's why there's only a little bit of an army list, because they couldn't be asked in the end. We're just
say McCullough saw where this was going, and
absolutely,
chose to spend his time elsewhere. That was brilliant of him. He is so good.
He knows what we're going to think before we even think it,
and he knows we're writing the lore for this
absolutely
whole universe. So,
yes, indeed. Oh, my friend, I'm grateful that you're back on. I'm happy to hear that you're here, and I'm just grateful you're back here, to be honest, Michael. I don't know what I was going to say there, but yeah, it's been a great episode. I've really enjoyed going through that. It's made me think about what I'm going to be building as an army, so that's super useful, and hopefully it's helped our listeners out there who are thinking, I've got all my other armies, do I need a undead army? The answer already is, people, yes, you do.
Helping or hurting, Matt? It's
absolutely.
Just 2 letters difference between those two, maybe 3. Yeah, 3.
Absolutely.
No, it's a pleasure. I'll come on and talk about undead anytime. Having me back so we can go over those spells, because it was episode 33. I suggested to Chris that we go through all the spell books in depth. And now we're at episode 47. We haven't done any since episode 33, so we need to get back at it.
Well, there we go. We've got some. There we go, guys. We know what we're going to be talking about in the future with Michael. So we will be having you back soon, sir.
Super.
Very soon. We are going to hopefully be able to get Chris on to do a 50-second episode, or as for the celebration of a year of Oathwire. So hopefully we can all get together for that real soon, because I think that would be super cool. So
that would be enjoyable.
Yeah, and we can waffle and listen to Chris laugh at us. Okay, my friend, thank you very much. And I will say good night to everybody here. Good morning and good afternoon. And speak to you and listen. Well, speak to you soon. You're not going to listen to me soon. I'll say good night.
And I'll just say bye-bye.
Okay, guys. Cheers.
Matt is driving me